Media Agency. Hello and welcome to our viewers who are watching us on your screens. And also you can follow us on our social media platforms on Facebook and YouTube. I'm Lalim Techana with today's news, and now I'll proceed to the details. The United Nations announced earlier this week that Ethiopian forces had forcibly taken 18 aid trucks belonging to the World Food Programme. The aid trucks were expected to deliver aid to the millions in need of emergency food assistance, but are instead being used by the Ethiopian military and its allies. The UN has announced that this will force it to discontinue aid distribution. UN data indicates that there are over 9 million people in North Ethiopia in need of emergency food assistance. For more, Faniel Imru reports.
During the 13-month-long conflict in Tigray, Ethiopian forces and their allies have been accused of numerous war crimes, including using hunger as a weapon of war. These forces have been deliberately blocking humanitarian corridors to ensure that aid could not reach the millions in Tigray in desperate need. The United Nations reported that 18 World Food Programme aid trucks were taken from Disaster Risk Management Compound in Kombolcha on December 10 by the Ethiopian National Defense Force and allied military forces, and used those trucks for its own use. This is just another reported looting in the course of 3 days. The United Nations said that on December 7 and 8 days after the central government announced that it had recaptured the towns of Dese and Kombolcha, 3 WFP trucks were stolen by military men and used for their own purposes. And used those trucks for its warehouses were also looted in Dese and Kombolcha. In large amounts of food stocks. The United Nations said that on December 7 and 8 days after the central government announced that it had recaptured the towns of Dese and Kombolcha, 3 WFP trucks were stolen by military men and used for their own purposes. And used those trucks for its own use.
Joseph Borrell, the top diplomat for the European Union, expressed his frustration that the EU has so far failed to take decisive action to end the gross violations of human rights in the conflict in Tigray. Again, Fani Limru reports.
The conflict in Tigray has caused unspeakable damage to the livelihood of millions living across Tigray. So far, 6.2 million people are in need of humanitarian aid and over 1 million people living in famine-like conditions, while the international community has fallen short of taking decisive action to end this humanitarian catastrophe. Joseph Borrell, European Union's top diplomat, expressed his frustration that his institution has so far failed to take a decisive action as large-scale human rights violations have continued to take place in Ethiopia.
And it is also one of my biggest frustrations because we were not able to react properly to the large-scale human rights violations, mass rapes, using sexual violence, killings, and concentration camps based on ethnic belonging. We haven't been able to stop it.
The United Nations have reported that Ethiopian forces and their allies have looted World Food Programme warehouses in Dese and Kombolcha last week, leading to the discontinuation of aid distribution. The diplomat further emphasized that just 10% of much-needed humanitarian aid is reaching those in need, while many continue to perish due to lack of food and medical supplies.
Only 10% of humanitarian help needed in the north of Ethiopia is reaching the people in need, only 10%.
Joseph Borrell also emphasized that the spillover effect of the conflict may tend to destabilize the whole of the country and even the region,
producing a devastating humanitarian crisis. It undermines not only the stability of Ethiopia, but on the entire region.
The United Nations Human Rights Council will hold a special session on Friday on the grave situation in Ethiopia at the request of the European Union, according to a UN statement issued yesterday.
The Ethiopian Catholic Church has a long history of service in Ethiopia. The Catholic Church in Tigray has been at the forefront of the humanitarian response in Tigray. In addition to the Church's dedicated work with those most in need, it has also worked tirelessly to raise awareness about atrocities committed in Tigray. An important aspect of the humanitarian response by the Church are missionaries. Some have served the community for decades and have chosen to remain and continue to serve the community they now call home. For more, Aragawi Gabramika reports.
The Catholic Church has a long history of dedicated service in Tigray and across different parts of Ethiopia. Since the establishment of the Church in the 17th century, it has been dedicated to expanding education and community service. Father Roka and Father Sabo are just one of the few Catholic missionaries in Ethiopia serving in Adigrat, where one of the 4 epicaries in Ethiopia are based.
My name is Alfred Roca. I was born in Barcelona, and when I was 53 years of age, I came to Ethiopia. I belong to the religious institution Salesians of Don Bosco, and I came here to found in Adigrat a community for Ethiopians that wish to join our congregation as priests or brothers, and they were going to do the studies here in this seminary. So that was the reason why the superiors thought that I could come here. And for 10 years I was here in Adigrat from 87 to 97 practically, and then I was sent to Addis Ababa as in charge of all the communities that the Salesians had in Eritrea and in Ethiopia, and to build some new ones. That was for another 10 years. At that time we opened the house of street children in Mekanissa, the house in Gambela for that poor region, and we opened, it was opened before, Adwa, Denshire, other communities. Then I was in Debrecen 3 years as master of novices. Those who want to join during 1 year prepare themselves.
My name is Father Sabu Sebastian. I hail from India. I come from India. I'm a missionary priest in the congregation of missionaries of Africa. I mean, which the society, the congregation works mostly in the African continent. We have different social projects. We have an orphanage. We have a library for students. We also have a school in Wukro, St. Mary's School. We also have youth development projects in both in Tigray and also in Amara region, specifically in Kambalcha.
The past year of the conflict has resulted in destruction of public and private properties across Tigray. The fathers say this has also been true for the church, a holy and sacred place for its followers.
Let us come to November 2020. No? In November 2020, a little by surprise, because the schools were just taking the names. It seems that the schools were going to open, but at a certain moment we find ourselves immersed in a war. Eritrean soldiers enter into the residence of the parish priest and were shooting there. And he came to refuge also in our community. And we know some other things that happened. For instance, the husband of one of the girls that had been in our oratory was Sevenya in the factory, and he was together with other killed. So one evening, because the church of the Kedus Yohanes is near us there, they buried 7 of them that had been killed in the road, in the field and all that, just because they were taking care of the factory. It was their job in the night.
In fact, I went to town last year for some business. So it was in the afternoon, 2 in the afternoon, 2 p.m. Immediately I had a lot of gunshots, heavy firing all around me, coming towards from Salambasa Road. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I know what to do. You know, I was just stuck there, okay, you know, in town, because I didn't know where to go. Can I go back home? Or can I take maybe another road? But I did not know how to escape even. That day. It was a really a bad, horrible experience for me. And that was the first time, this is the first time I am living this sort of experience, in fact. Month of in December, in the beginning of December, we had 6-7 soldiers came into our compound where we live, where we reside, with everyone with a gun, holding a gun, and intimidating us.
But the father said that despite the many challenges, they or their church has not lost sight of their responsibility to serve their community.
Thanks to some extra money that has sometimes come, that was sent directly to the owner of the factory, no, from Addis Ababa to the owner of the factory. We did not touch cash. We could give fino to the people, but that also now is stopped.
The father says that while they remained committed to their duty, the ongoing siege had made it exceptionally difficult for the church to continue to do its humanitarian work.
Because of that blockage, medicines and food and everything, money in the banks, the situation is very, very serious, no? Because people are dying, and the first right that we speak about human rights, no? The first human right that the people have is to continue living and living with dignity, no? And now the people are not living in dignity, no? But there are many other people that came, immigrants from other places already before, and they live just in a room of 5 per 5 in another house that is the owner of the house. They have to pay a rent on that, and they have nothing. They cannot live. So I think that is something that really needs a solution, no? A solution. It is not logical that people that have money in the bank, they cannot get their money. It is not logical that we institutions cannot get some help, extra help that we are in, that also arrives in the banks, and we cannot get it to use.
Since then, everything is closed. There is no bank, no communication. You can't buy things in the market. Therefore, all our projects are kind of came to stop. We can't run any projects without money.
Though the fathers had the chance to leave Tigray at any time during the war, they say that they have chosen to remain and serve the community that has been their home for years.
I am 88 years of age, and it has affected me very much. Not so much because I have to eat less, we don't eat meat a long time ago and all that, but has affected much that the people come to ask, and you have to say, I cannot. So that has affected me very much. Sometimes I don't sleep well because I don't see how to. But I made the option on June. I was supposed to go for holidays to Spain on July and all that. But I said, if you go out of Tigray, you may not be able to come back again. This is my people. Yeah. This is my place. So I made the option to stay here.
The humanitarian catastrophe has continued to expand in Ethiopia, with the UN declaring over 9 million people in need of emergency assistance in northern Ethiopia alone. The humanitarian catastrophe has been further exacerbated by the Ethiopian government's siege on Tigray that has made it all but impossible for humanitarian actors to provide necessary assistance.
For the past 5 months, Tigray has been completely cut off from the rest of the world. The Ethiopian government has blocked all roads coming to the region, including 8 trucks carrying essentials like food and medical supplies. The blockade has included the discontinuation of banking services, a complete communications blackout and blockade of all commercial goods. For months, the United Nations has warned about the increased number of people in need of emergency assistance in Tigray, and as urban starvation has started to creep into cities across Tigray. For more, Haile Gabriel reports.
Over 8 months of conflict in Tigray, in addition to over 5 months living under siege that has blocked off all aid and commercial services and discontinued banking, putting millions in need of emergency assistance. Many of those in need live in urban areas where lack of cash has made it impossible to afford housing or food. This is unfinished private building in Hawalti sub-city, repurposed to house families living in the sub-city. While the families were able to find temporary shelter, food and other essentials have been more difficult to access.
I used to make a living washing clothes. However, now I'm jobless and I have nothing to eat. I'm HIV positive. I'm using antiretroviral therapy. My daughter is negative. I'm breastfeeding her, but it's a bit hard for me because of lack of food. I made a living making brooms before. I was able to engage in my handcrafts and use them to generate income. Now I'm in a desperate situation.
I was living with my daughter before she died. Then I just came here. After a long time of diagnosis, Idar hospital doctors found out that I have cancer.
The residents say that it is not only food, but also medical supplies that they have so far not to be able to access.
This is my flour container. Now it's empty, as I have already baked all the flour in it. You can see how empty it is. The dough has been emptied too. I have nothing to it. I have a prescription to take 4 tablets a day, but the hunger makes me feel dizzy when I take them.
My mom needs food. She has a chronic illness. She faints when she hasn't eaten. It makes her dizzy. Abiy Ahmed's government is responsible for the crisis in Tigray.
I'm incapable of treating my daughter due to the headache. I am in a devastating condition. I'm losing control over my body. I'm not also feeling well psychologically.
Following the discontinuation of medication, my eyes have become blurred. All this happened because the supply lines into Tigray were cut off by the federal government of Ethiopia. My doctors told me that I must take the medicine timely and as prescribed. However, it is difficult to get medicine or food.
Now is the time I need help. I have nothing to eat. I have no injera. I have nothing to feed my daughter. It is really troubling me. My health condition is deteriorating. My body is weakening due to hunger from time to time. Hence, I need support as soon as possible.
This unfinished repurposed building is home to dozens of people with chronic illnesses. Children, mothers and elders in Magala who see no end in sight to their sufferings, and the world has all but failed to hear their cries.
The Maikadra massacre has been widely reported by human rights groups in media across the world, with very conflicting reports coming out about what exactly unfolded. Our reporters spoke with IDPs in the Ago community about what exactly unfolded on November 9, 2020. For more, Salome Takhlai reports.
Atrocities ranging from rape to arbitrary killings and gruesome massacres have been committed by the Ethiopian, Eritrean, and Amhara forces. November 9, 2020 marks the day that the Amhara Special Forces, militia, and vigilante group Fano, known for their brutality and genocidal intents, horribly killed hundreds of innocent Tigray residents of Maikadra. IDPs from Maikadra say that they were a witness to these horrific crimes.
People were killed by machetes. The Amhara forces considered themselves heroes for killing innocent people. They slaughtered people using knives as if they had been animals. I saw old and young people being killed with my own eyes.
It was the Amhara Special Forces and the Fano who did all the killings. The Ethiopian military force went to Humara, but the Amhara Special Forces and Fano stayed there and started killing innocent civilians. They threatened to shoot us too. We went through so much trouble. I myself had been arrested.
Fano, Amhara Special Forces and Amhara militia were killing Tigrayans and Ago people, calling them junta. They used knives, machetes and axes. We were hiding at home while all these atrocities were happening.
The eyewitnesses say that narratives that depict Amhara civilians as the primary target of the massacre are wholly untrue, and say what they witnessed was an attempt to eradicate Tigrayans from western Tigray.
It's not true. I never saw any Amhara get killed. It was Tigrayans who were being murdered. Even the priests were part of the massacre. A priest was ordering the murder of innocent civilians, saying that we need to remove Tigrayans and that the land up to Takaza belongs to us.
We were hiding. There were some good people helping us hide and escape. However, a huge number of innocent people were killed. It was the Amhara forces who did this. They were calling the Tigrayans junta, telling them Maikadra and the land up to Takada belongs to them.
Even though we managed to escape the mass killings, our properties were looted, and this has put our lives in danger, added the survivors. Over 1.2 million Tigrayans have been displaced from western Tigray, where Amhara militia, Fano vigilante group, and Eritrean forces continue to commit horrific crimes, arresting, torturing, and killing innocent civilians.
The deliberate and systematic destruction of health facilities across Tigray has been a defining feature of the ongoing conflict, leading to the destruction of over 80% of Tigray's health facilities and the complete collapse of its health system. The conflict has expanded into other regions in Ethiopia, And so has the destruction. Our reporters visited a health facility in Ago where Ethiopian forces have destroyed health facilities, having an immeasurable impact on the health and well-being of the community, especially children and mothers. For more, Abel Tsagawa reports.
The past year of the conflict has been defined by the level of destruction of public facilities, especially health facilities, with the destruction of 80% of health centers in Tigray, leading to the complete collapse of Tigray's health system. But doctors in Ago, Amhara region say that the systematic attack on health facilities has continued in other parts of Ethiopia, and the conflict had spilled over into neighboring regions of Amhara and Afar. Doctors in the health centers say mothers and children are dying due to lack of medical service.
Documents, ambulances, and offices were burned, and that's where people with chronic illnesses get treatment. They destroyed it. It's hard. Mothers and children are dying due to the lack of medical care.
So many are facing a difficult situation. You can see the rooms, all are destroyed. It is so bad.
The doctors also added that facilities were destroyed because the Ethiopian forces had used public facilities, including health centers, as military camps, and thus they can provide medical service.
It's so sad when the children die due to lack of medication. The number of deaths of mothers and children is exponentially increasing. Especially infants under the age 5 are suffering from malnutrition. They need to get immediate attention.
After the Tigrayan forces came here, we have done a lot of things. At least the community is living their day-to-day life peacefully. We were dreadful before they controlled the town. The Ago has faced difficulties when the Ethiopian forces were here. The Ethiopian forces accused that 99% of us were supporters of junta.
Head of the health affairs of the town, Dr. Milashu Hailu, said that it had been Ethiopian and Amhara forces that vandalized the health facilities and warned that the death of children and mothers will continue unless there is an immediate response to assist the town's health facilities.
This was all done by Amhara forces. They did this before they left the town as a result of the advancement by Tigrayan forces. They have looted all medication and ambulances and destroyed other facilities that are hard to load.
Ambassador Tibor Nagy, former U.S. Ambassador to Ethiopia and Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, and Abrar Fatui, Associate Professor at St. Mary College in Notre Dame, had a brief stay with Tigray Media House, where they expressed concern about the lack of tangible actions by the international community regarding the humanitarian catastrophe in Tigray. For more, Abraha Gabriel reports.
The war on Tigray has been marked by the use of food as a weapon of war, sexual violence, and the systematic destruction of public institutions and especially health facilities. And yet, over 1 year into the conflict, and the international community has failed to go beyond rhetorical condemnation, leaving millions in crisis. Ambassador Tibor Nagy, former Undersecretary of African Affairs for the U.S. State Department and former ambassador to Ethiopia, stated his disappointment in the Security Council's failure to act while millions remain in need.
The international response has been hamstrung to a certain extent by one factor. The United States has tried a number of times to bring forth very, very strong resolutions in the United Nations, and each time that has been stopped by China or Russia. I believe very strongly that if the entire international community had acted together, including China and Russia, on the Security Council, then the suffering could have been stopped much, much sooner. I think the international community's response has been extremely disappointing. I have never been a strong supporter of just making statements because, you know, as I've told somebody, the only way a statement will make an impact is if you drop a box of them on the head of whoever is, you know, committing the misdeeds.
Dr. Abrar Fatoui, Associate Professor at Saint Mary College in Notre Dame, also stated his concern that the international community has failed to take tangible action to end the humanitarian crisis in Tigray, but has also failed to give proper attention to tens of thousands of Tigrayans arbitrarily arrested and indefinitely held by Ethiopian authorities based strictly on their ethnic identity.
Normally, the international community responds slowly everywhere, but when we come in particular here, for instance, it had more than 10 meetings, the United Nations Security Council. It has said several times Eritreans should get out of Tigray. Nothing happened in that regard. Still they are fighting inside Tigray. They said, we are going to force the parties towards a negotiated settlement. Nothing has moved forward in terms of that as well. And currently, as you mentioned it rightly, in Addis Ababa, people are being arrested, detained, based on their origin by just looking at the names, at the language that they speak, and at the ID card that where are they from. Those are only becoming now the basis for taking actions on civilians. And the world knows this very well. It's not about that they don't know. Everybody knows. But no action.
Ambassador Tibor Naj explains that there are international laws and principles that set the ground for intervention, but the member countries' failure to unite behind a humanitarian cause has left it weak.
There is an international law, and there could be a no-fly zone, but that would have to be done by the Security Council. And once again, I say that 2 of the permanent members of the Security Council would probably not let that happen. You know, so that's one. On the objectives.
Finally, Ambassador Naj and Dr. Abrar called for the international community to stand united to bring about a ceasefire, calling the war on Tigray one of the most needless wars in history.
I keep going back to the point, the international community has to be united, including China and Russia, and just say, we want a ceasefire right now, or we're all going to sanction everybody. You know, it's not realistic to think in this day and age, we're not going to show up with United Nations troops to enforce a peace. But the entire international community has to say to everybody, Eritrea, get the heck out of there. Everybody else, stop fighting. In my view, this is one of the most needless wars in history.
The cause is political. The question is political. So there is no military solution for this. But we have to stop atrocities. We have to end blockade. We have to stop mass killings of civilians. We have to stop detentions of just citizens. We have to stop drone attacks. So this should, even wherever there is fighting, those should be the things that we have to question, we have to stop first.
Bishop of the Eparchy of Adigrat in Tigray's Catholic Church, Bishop Tesfasilase Medhin, had a short stay with us here at Tigray Television, where he emphasized the large-scale violation of human rights in Tigray in the past year of the conflict. Miro Imana has more.
The Bishop of the Eparchy of Adigrat, Tesfasilase Medhin, discussed the humanitarian catastrophe that has unfolded in Tigray since the start of the conflict, and how this siege in particular has affected the humanitarian work of the Church.
God, Jesus, God felt so pity for humanity, for its weakness and failure to live by its grace. God cared, and the second person of Trinity, Jesus, was incarnated. He lived to save humanity, and that humanity which has cost the life of our Lord now is being and considered so cheap. Makes me feel, not only feel, but my heart like bleeds.
The bishop emphasized that much of the area inhabited by the people of Iro remained under the hostile control of the Eritrean forces that continued to abuse its residents and destroy public as well as private properties.
I think any religious leader will have difficult time to visit families who have lost their children, brothers, fathers, who have come to Tigray to kill and who may be killed in Tigray or elsewhere. People do not deserve this. Families do not deserve this in any corner of this country.
The bishop expressed deep gratitude towards the Pope of the Roman Catholic Church, Pope Francis, for addressing for his firm stand on the humanitarian crises in Tigray, and emphasized the role of the religious leaders should always be to stand for peace.
I would like at this moment to express my gratitude to His Holiness Pope Francis. He has done, we have no media, but I have heard through various ways, he has done more than 5 statements, 5 voices, calling upon the parties in this country before the start, afterwards, and then appealing on behalf of the dying women and children because of the complete blockage